I want to start with the whole notion of the MPP's association and respect for security services in Ghana. That the fact of the matter being that at no point has the MPP ever downgraded the need for security, but I've always emphasized the stately nature of that institution, that they are an institution of state, and that we've moved beyond the point where security forces get involved, direct governance, I mean, in terms of taking over of the state and all that. They've gone beyond that. We also haven't seen successfully in Ghana a situation where the state security forces have been used to suppress political opinion in the sense of expressing the free will of the people. I'm trying to put all this in context to set people's minds at rest about whether the military has special forces or otherwise, and whether those forces are going to be used specifically towards quelling dissent, legitimate dissent in the 2012 elections, and that the two key issues when it comes to the military and the security forces in Ghana are loyalty to the state, first of all, and respect for the chain of command.
When your question gets too long.
This is not a question. I'm stating something for the interest of our people.
Well, it's becoming like a mini.
Yes,
but essentially,
it's a mini intro.
Yeah, the NPP or no party in Ghana is worried about the use of the security to suppress political opponents. The Ghanaian military are some of the best professionals in the world, and they have citations all over. You remember our peacekeeping credentials and our commanding credentials. So the Ghanaian military, they have a premium internationally. So they are some of the best professionals in the world. The problem has been the limitation on their professional duties by political actors. That has been the worry, that they have not been allowed to do their work in maintaining order by political bosses. If you remember in 2008, during the elections, out of concern being raised by then candidate Mills and the NDC generally about the use of incumbency to influence the work of the police and the security. Because of that, President Kufuor at that time, during the elections, took away the headship of the district security, the regional security from the political authorities. Right. The regional minister is usually the head of the regional security. The district chief executive is usually the head of the district security. During the elections, those duties were taken away from them and invested in the police commanders. So the regional police commander became the head of the regional security for the period of the election. So yes, just to instill confidence that the political actors will be taken out and the military or the security be allowed to do their professional duty. So you did not have cases where supporters of the government party were on the rampage, molesting, harassing, threatening, harming opposition supporters because they had a security on their side. You didn't have those cases. Indeed, the one case where you had supporters threatening mayhem was when NDC supporters besieged the Electoral Commission. The decision of the police command at that time was that since they were not there and they hadn't engaged themselves in damage to property and so on, they should be allowed to be there. I can assure you, if the political authorities was left to them, they would have asked the police to evacuate those supporters. So it was one good example of how the political weight was taken away from security matters, so the security could act according to their training. So the worry has been if the political actors would allow the security to act professionally. That's been the worry. The president, I think yesterday or so, at the celebration of Independence Day, made assurances that as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, he would ensure that there is peace and security for everybody, for the process, so that it to be genuine, to be transparent, to be fair, and all of that. We wish to take him at his word. Our only worry is that the track record is not good. And you know that action speaks louder than words. When I talk of track record, I'm talking of the elections that have been held under the watch of President Mills. Cherry Pony, we all saw what happened, where an NDC activist was actually captured on film, shooting into a crowd of NPP supporters. 5 of them were seriously wounded. They needed emergency surgery to save their lives. Captured on film. That nothing has been done to that person. That person is still walking about. So what is going to stop him from repeating those actions that he took in Cherry Pony? Look at Akwetia, 6 polling stations. NDC mobs going around each of the polling stations, threatening, molesting NPP supporters. They actually got some of our agents, party agents, removed from the polling stations. They removed no less a person than Mr. Dan Botwe, who was an NPP polling agent at Akwetia. They got him removed. The police were standing idly by.
But the police advised him to go out to
But the police advised him that he should leave and get himself replaced, because they didn't, they didn't know what else to do about the situation. But if the police had been allowed to act professionally, they were not going to allow that mob to go and molest NPP supporters at the polling stations. So at Etiwa, the people at Etiwa decided that because of what happened at Cherry Pony, because of what happened at Akwetia, they were going to protect themselves. So you had the situation that happened in Etiwa. So that's the worry, that in all of these instances, in the Cherry Pony, the gentleman, if I can call him so, is still walking free, even though there is evidence on film about the crime that he committed. At Akwetia, there was live radio commentary. All the radio stations were covering it live, and they recorded the mayhem that was going on and how Dan Botwe, for example, was forced out of the polling station, an accredited NPP agent. And then you had Etiwa, where this NDC national executive member ran the car through a group of NPP supporters, even assuming this was an accident, because depending on who is talking, this one says, well, I was threatened. This one said, no, she ran through us without we hadn't threatened her. So assuming the stories differ, but there clearly was an accident. Ghanaians were hurt when the big car ran through them. They were in hospital for months. We didn't hear one word of consolation from the president, from the chief executive, from the father of the nation. So this track record give qualification to however we would see the president's assurance. We hope that it's not too late. The videos are still there. The president can still act. The people who were hurt in the Tiwa, the people who were hurt at Cherry Pony, those people who required emergency surgery, those people at Tiwa who had to be in hospital for 6 months. It's not too late for the president to have a word of consolation for them, so that all of us can get over that period. And then all of us can together work to ensure that these elections become what all of us want it to be.
Is that to say that without the president retrospectively acknowledging those events, we can't take him at his word now?
We can't take him at his word, but at the back of our mind, you see, because of the inactions, it's those inactions at Cherry Pony and Akwetia that gave rise to comments like, all die be die, because people thought that if this was going to be the case, where one party's supporters were going to act with so much impunity, then people were going to take their own defense into their hands. So it is that kind of inaction that gives rise to comments like, oh, die be die, and so on. And we don't want that. And we believe that the president has a primary responsibility to get the nation behind him in ensuring that we have a peaceful election.
But then the interesting thing is that, as you mentioned, all die be die. And the president also says, no, if you don't retract on all die be die, then I'm compelled to prepare for war in order to maintain the peace. So which one comes first?
At the end of the day, when the president came to parliament and in response to Order Bidai, he said he had put the military and the security on red alert. You remember in February 2011?
Yes.
That was the year where Woyome was able to come and, according to they themselves, defraud the government of millions and millions of cedis. So you can be straining for the ant and miss the elephant.
Red alert actually missed the real people who were killing off the state.
Yeah. So, you know.
So Nana then feels concerned enough about the environment preceding the election to call for peace. He has consistently called for peace in recent months, in his travels in the USA, in the recent lectures, Oppenheimer lectures, and locally. And the president echoed him then on the 6th March. Now, what are the elements? Assuming we are going to go beyond this hurdle of who did it first and who must recant first, assuming we are all being born again, letting the past sweep itself under the bridge, what are the elements going forward? I did hear you say that the primary responsibility for peace rested with the state. Does that mean that now...
Because they are the leaders.
They are the leaders. So does it extend to the electoral process? What steps should we see them taking in order to satisfy ourselves that electorally we are sound?
The bigger picture is the use of incumbency to get undue advantage and thereby disadvantage other people. There are some advantages that come to incumbency naturally. There's nothing or there isn't much you can do about it.
Okay.
It's just that you enjoy that advantage because you are the incumbent. You collect the taxes, the VAT, the national health insurance, the customs duties, the special levies, the donor funding, the loans. You get all of it. And so it gives you a huge advantage. Nobody can do much about it. But there are some advantages that are not natural. Okay. You know, and so the use of incumbency to get unfair advantage can make the elections troublesome because people will try and resist the unfair use of incumbency. The electoral process, registration, you want to make sure that resources are adequate, time is adequate, and that there's law and order during the registration process, that you don't try and register unqualified people, for example. You hear so many stories that there's all kinds of maneuvers going to take place in Volta region, on the border with Burkina Faso. You hear all kinds of stories. We are monitoring to ensure that nobody uses incumbency to register unqualified people. That can be an issue. The matter about verification, I don't know if it is fully settled yet, but it's a very sore point. For me, it doesn't make sense why you would spend money to capture biometric data, which basically is the fingerprints, and not use that biometric data to identify voters. I don't know how, there's no logic.
I think today Dr. Farijan was speaking in a forum where it apparently appears from his words that it's settled.
But you see, what you say is apparently, it means that there's no definite
He gave
finality.
a budget and he gave a figure for the
you would find that even Mr. Farijan, even when he speaks, there's always some caveats and all of that. But the bottom line is this is something that should be settled without question.
Excellent.
Because you are going to capture the biometric data. Now, why are you going to capture it if you will not use it to identify the voter? Why are you capturing it? So it becomes an issue, and it gives people anxiety. That why would the ruling government not want the verification when it is very clear that a verification will limit the options for double voting and double registration and all of that? Why would somebody not want it?
Exactly. So that's a question that we are looking at when we try to settle the issues of peaceful elections. Clearly, it's about a level playing field. You are going into registration, you want to ensure that you have a clean register, one man, one vote, and that is verifiable based on the system one has adopted. You also want to have an objective security apparatus that will be fair to everybody. Development demands leadership. Part of the leadership is that you bequeath this nation a free and fair election that sustains the legitimacy of the democratic process. And then the other part of the leadership is that the political process delivers the economic and social salvation that we need. In other words, the choices we make politically ought to serve us economically and socially. Nana Komia, who is the Director of Communications for the MPP campaign, as well as, of course, Honorable Member of Parliament for Kaikwe South, is with me tonight, and we are going to explore these issues in a little more depth. Nana, well, you're Nana, and my flag bearer is Nana. So when I say Nana on tonight, one of you will be Nana squared.
Yeah.
But Nanado has been very emphatic over the past few months, probably since the Amancha Abona rally. It has come into even more prominence. The question of leadership, that we have choices, and that politically, once you make those choices, the political leadership must deliver the goods. And he stated certain things required in this delivery of political goods, the dividends of political democracy, as being the choice and the decision-making factor to move us towards transformation. He is offering free education as a basis for that transformation. And he's saying that he will restore the key social interventions like NHIS, which appears to be collapsing as we speak. He hasn't said that without challenge from external sources. So when Nana says that I'll deliver transformation, is it feasible? Is it doable? What will he do different that hasn't been done before, sitting where we are now?
Well, leadership is key. Leadership is cause. Everything else is effect. If you take this station, multimedia, it's been led by one or two people. If you change those two people, things may be different. Okay. So leadership is key. Everything else is effect. Now, what we have lacked in this country is leadership that has the vision, that has the commitment. We've had everything. The Ghanaian people are good people, fairly well educated, good natured. We have natural resources. What we have lacked is leadership that will combine all of this and channel it forward. Now, when you have a situation where a whole government, led by a law professor, it admits that one man called Mr. Woyome is able to come and defraud basically the entire government financial system and take away such huge monies. Not once, but payment over several periods. Clearly, there is a paralysis of leadership. Assuming that what the government itself has admitted is true, that the man, they paid out the money by mistake, and the man came and defrauded them, that the whole government, with the whole panoply of the administrative setup, the whole panoply of security institutions, the BNI, the Blue Gate, the Yoko, all of those institutions that nobody is able to elect, and this man, one man, is able to carry the fraud through the Attorney General's Department, the Ministry of Finance, the Comptroller and Accountant General, the Bank of Ghana, the Office of the President, one man. As I sit here as a member of Parliament, when I write to AMA for some HIPIC relief for flood victims, and it goes to AMA, there are several offices, the mayor's office, first it goes to the mayor, from there it goes to the chief director, or they call him the coordinating director. He goes to finance, he goes to budget, he goes to accounts. In all of those offices, your documentation has to be exact. And what are you asking for? 5,000 cedis to go and give as relief to some flood victims. It goes to AMA. Every single office
has to sign off on it.
They have to have the documentation and sign off. If you're asking for 5,000 cedis. So how is it that a whole government, somebody is asking not for 5,000, but hundreds of millions of cedis, and it goes through Attorney General, of all the lawyers and the minister. It comes to finance, all the lawyers, all the minister, all of it. It goes to controller. The controls there, the Bank of Ghana, and yet still, they are able to pay this man over 5 or 6 tranches. And they say that the man has defrauded them. It shows that the leadership is comatose, at best.
At best?
Yeah. Leadership is comatose. So this is what we're talking about. You need leadership that will transform this country. Bring change. By definition, leadership means moving from one place to the other. Managing is trying to make sure that where we are, the systems will work. But the leader moves us from one stage to the other.
And in this
there has to be movement.
Yes.
100 years ago, the structure of our economy used to be 80% of our income came from export of raw material, cocoa, gold, and timber. Almost 100 years down the line, about 70% of our income still comes from export of raw materials, cocoa, gold, and timber. This time, oil.
Added oil.
Now, if you keep doing the same things over and over, how are you going to get a different result? Last year alone, we imported consumption goods, $3 billion. I'm talking of biscuits, chocolates, matches.
Virtually everything we use.
Every consumer item. Biscuit, chocolate, matches, fruit juice, tomato juice. I'm talking of things, chicken, things that we can do, rice. $3 billion last year. So there's pressure on the city. In the first 2 months of February, the Bank of Ghana had to pump in more than $400 million just to stabilize the city.
Prop up the city.
Why? An agricultural country, a country with cheap labor. What business do we have importing so much chicken, so much biscuits, so much chocolate, so much rice, so much fruit juice? Go to the ships in Tema. They go 2 kilometers into the sea. Go and look at what is there. Rice, sugar, chicken. How are you going to get a job for your people, for the young people? So you need leadership, even with the oil. That we had a refinery. When we didn't have crude oil on ourselves, we used to import crude oil and refine it in our refinery. Now that we have crude oil, we are exporting the crude oil and taking money to import petrol.
The refinery is idle.
And the refinery is idle. How do you explain it? There's no sense of urgency. So you need a leader that will transform. Transform means changing the structure, changing the way we do things so that you can achieve a different result.
Then it would also imply a certain level of mindset change for Ghanaians as a whole. And President Kufuor, I remember, set up the Ministry of Orientation. And I think you led it for a while. Is that task being underestimated?
You see, the mindset is important, but it is like a train. If the head moves, it dictates the direction. The carriages may be 20 carriages. The head, where the engine is just one.
Yes.
But when it moves,
Yes.
it's able to detect where the rest of the body moves.
Yes.
I mean, it's the same Ghanaians who are here and who are not mobilized enough to engage in productive activity. It's the same Ghanaians who go to London and they work harder than those people who were born there.
Yes.
They don't urinate on the streets.
No.
They don't break the traffic rules.
Okay.
They are not late for work.
Even in the snow.
Even in the snow, which is totally alien to their body. It's the same Ghanaian. How come? How come? It's the same attitude, unless the attitude changes in that 6-hour flight in the aeroplane. It doesn't. It's the same Ghanaian. Yes. It's the same attitude.
Yes.
But when it goes there,
framework is there.
The system is different, and the system works.
Yes.
It works.
Yes.
When they say the train will come at 4 o'clock, 10 seconds to 4, you hear the train is coming. So if you are late, the train will leave you.
Yes, the train will not wait because
you know late. Because of when I went to London, the school days. You know, the train is a long train, about 80 meters long. So there are several gates. So when the train comes, you want to enter the gate. They say, no, don't enter. Let's go and enter the other gate. And they'll be running to go and enter the other gate. And I used to wonder, but why? Is there any gates, any of the doors who take it? And they said, no. Where the station that we are going to, that gate is closer to the exit.
So they are organized.
Same Ghanaians. Yes. So when the train comes and I want to enter, they say, no, let's go. And you have to run to that gate. Now I wonder, why? Yes. They say, no. Where we are going to exit, that gate is closer to it. So that 10 seconds, 15 seconds, they save it by going to that gate. So as soon as they get down, they are off.
That is the question. If the Ghanaian can do it elsewhere, why can't we do it in Ghana for ourselves when everything in Ghana is at stake? It means there's a certain gap. The head, the leader, must push, set up the framework and the guidelines so that we can. Nana, free education up to SHS level. Nanado has said it over and over again, that for him, education is the bedrock. If there is going to be true, genuine transformation, we must have the people with appropriate skills. We must have the people appreciating the challenges and being able to take the initiative in innovative ways and deal with those challenges. Bottom line, education. But we are being told it's undoable. The naysayers say we can't do it, and where is the money, and it's impossible.
Well, Nana was asked quite a bit about his plans to transform education in this country. And it came to the costing, and he said that he would prefer, the timing is not good for him, that when he comes back into the country, he would like to put those things out in the country.
Before,
yeah, before. But you see, to do anything, number one, what you want to do must be correct. If it's not correct, if it's not right, then there's no point. But if it's right, if it's correct, if it's going to be beneficial, if it is worth doing, then it can be done once the commitment is there.
Okay.
So what you want to do must be correct, must qualify as beneficial, and number two, there must be the commitment. You can do anything.
Yes.
I mean, how long after independence did we have national health insurance? 2003. How long after independence? Almost 50 years. But somebody said we have to have a broad-based welfare, healthcare,
yes,
universal healthcare paid for by insurance.
That's right.
The Americans are trying to get public-funded universal healthcare. That's one of President Obama's troubles.
He's struggling.
We have done it in Ghana. Public-funded universal healthcare. Somebody had a vision, and it was done. and everybody is benefiting from it. This education matter that Nana is talking about, I am so fascinated by the changes that Nana promises in education. What are the main problems? Number one, education, basic education in Ghana today finishes at BECE level. 150,000 Ghanaian children on the average are not able to pass the BECE. So they're not able to pass on from the junior school to the senior level. What happens to them? At that time, they are about 14, 15. They are not ready for the world of work because they are young. They don't have any skill. Their educational level is low. What happens to those 150,000 Ghanaian children? They fall through the cracks. So they end up selling dog chains and chewing gum on the streets. That situation cannot be tolerated.
Because every year,
another 150,000 fall through the cracks.
Building up.
You're storing trouble for the future. So Nana is saying that I would close the termination point at BECE and take the basic school termination point to secondary school. So every Ghanaian child from class 1 would go from class 1 to class 6 to secondary, from 1, from 2, from 3. That is when they will take the exams that will decide whether they go to university or not. So basic school will not be class 1 to JSS 3, but it will be class 1 to secondary school from 3.
And the assumption will be that at that point,
they are older. They will be 18, 19. Mm-hmm. So in terms of physical development, they are much more ready for the world of work. Mm-hmm. They are not, 18, they are adults.
Yes.
Secondly, they would have education standard at the level of secondary school. So they are better able to fend for themselves, to fit into society, as against dropping out at 14, 15, BECE, no skills, only basic education. Okay. So it is a transformational thought. Number two, education provides us with the best tool for social equity. See, the woman who is selling granules on the streets, she would probably earn 5 cedis a day. Yeah, I know you don't earn much, but at least you would earn 1,000 cedis. Whatever you do, you earn 1,000 cedis a month. The gap between you and this woman selling granules is very big. We cannot take your money and give it to that woman. But if we provide equal opportunity, good education, that woman's child, in 20 years' time, when the child has had good education, the child can be professionally qualified and start earning an income. He or she would be able to provide the mother who is selling granules with a much better standard of living.
Yes.
And in the second generation, that granules seller's child, yes, that's the granite seller's grandchild, yeah, will be much, 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 much better than the grandmother. I'm sure it happened to all of us.
That will transform the assessment.
Transform in a generation. The woman's child, my grandmother was a peasant farmer. Mm-hmm. My grandmother was a peasant farmer, never been to school.
That's right.
Never been to school. I met her, I used to go to the farm with her. But if she was alive, I would be able to give her, myself and the other grandchildren, would be able to give her a lifestyle that she would never have dreamt of because of education. That's right. So it provides us with the biggest tool for social advancement. So Nana is saying that granite woman's child, you don't want the child to be limited by the mother's ability or inability to pay. So if you want to provide the best tool to lift up that woman, make education, quality education, free for her child. That's all. Now people are saying it will cost too much. It is a good idea it is divine. And if it is so good and it is so divine, it can't be done.
Otherwise, why would you spend the money on something?
Off the top of my head, Nana says when it comes, he'll take his time and put the costing before Ghanaians, so Ghanaians can see that it can be done. But for the purposes of our conversation, off the top of my head, how many students are in secondary school? How many children? Maybe 300,000 a class. There are 3 classes, Form 1, Form 2, Form 3. So roughly about 900,000, 300, 300, 300. Each of them, what parents pay now, roughly about 400 cedis. So 900,000 are students, children, each paying 400 cedis on the average. Really, that is the bulk of the cost per year. It comes to 360,000 Ghana cedis.
360 million or thousand.
360 million Ghana cedis.
Yes.
Judgment debts that we've paid alone, 600 million Ghana cedis. So if we are able to take from Ghana 600 million Ghana cedis to pay judgment debts, including 52 million to Wyoming, are you saying that we will not be able to generate that money to ensure that every Ghanaian child has free education every year? We can.
We should.
Because the idea is so good, you can't resist it. And you need committed leadership, which Nana Akufo-Addo will provide. We can in this country.
2.9 billion cedis lost on the last Auditor General's report, the one before this one being considered. And he talks about making sure that the new economies we are building, oil and otherwise.
So if we better manage ourselves more efficiently,
yes,
cut down the obvious corruption,
yes,
like the disgraceful things that we are seeing with Wyoming and all of that.
That's right.
And manage ourselves more carefully. Provide the industries that will give us better income.
Yes.
Luckily for us today, we have oil. Why can we not do it? We can. Because we owe it a duty to the children of this country. We can do it.
It's a choice we must. We virtually have no choice but to take that choice, because otherwise we are drifting. Whither are we going?
And the idea is so transformational that you wonder why we haven't thought about it for such a long time. If you vote for the NPP, that is what you are getting.
Excellent. If you vote for the NPP, even for that alone, you are getting that. And a revamped NHIS means it takes care of the huge gap where the most poor, the most disadvantaged, the most vulnerable in society have leverage. If you can have access to affordable health, properly crafted NHIS, the premiums well sorted out, well funded, and if your child is catered for in school, the prospect that that child will come back and be a better person for themselves, and then later on.
And you see, when you look at Nana's track record, his public service record, this is a man who's always fought for what he believes in. In his early 30s, when most young men would be shying away from danger, he joined forces with much older people to fight against tyranny.
Yes.
When we were schoolboys, and he joined with other people. He was the secretary of a movement called the People's Movement for Freedom and Justice to fight against tyranny and dictatorship in this country. During the PNDC, Rawlings-led PNDC, he offered free legal services to people who have been wronged by the system, have had their properties seized without any trial. He offered free services and got a lot of these people restored, and their properties restored and their rights restored to them.
So he has...
In 1995, when Rawlings was virtually unchallenged in this country, Nana Akufo-Addo led a band of 9 or 10 young people to challenge the government over the VAT. I'll give you 30 seconds of how it worked. They had brought the VAT in 1995 at 17.5%. We said that because it was a new tax, people didn't know about it. The level of 17.5 was too high, that they should start it at 10%. Because people didn't know about it, there will be distortions. The groundnut seller will add VAT. The plantain seller will add VAT because they don't understand it. And it will all add to the level of the tax. So if you start it at 10, if you add all the distortions or what they call the cascading effect, you probably have an effective rate of about 13.
Yeah.
But if you start it at 17, with all the distortions and the cascading, it will go to about 20.
Yeah.
The government wouldn't listen. This was 1995. Yes. The Rawlings had been in power for maybe 14, 15 unbroken years.
Yes. And the current president was the acting commissioner of IRS.
When they did it, that first month of the VAT, I think in February to 1995, monthly inflation jumped from 2.4 to 6.4 because of all the cascading effect. The second month, the inflation went to 6.3 because the groundnut seller is charging VAT because she is paying VAT.
Yes.
So she's also adding up to the cost of her groundnuts. The plantain seller, everybody.
Yes.
There was massive hardship in this country. It was in that period that Nana Akufo-Addo and his young friends, 9 or 10 of them, got up to resist the government. And that's when they started the Kumi Preku series. They went from city to city. They finished in Tamale, the last city. They were coming down to Accra to organize a national one, which was dubbed Sifom Preku. Then Rawlings panicked, recalled Parliament to remove the VAT. So that is 3 years later, they brought the VAT back. You know the percentage that it started? 10.
3 years later.
So this is a man who has demonstrated that he has the courage of his convictions. And he's prepared to act on behalf of the people, despite the personal danger to he himself. This is a bourgeois man by all standards. His father was a chief justice and all of that. He put all of that aside, put his personal welfare aside, and put himself on the line to fight for VAT. He became a member of parliament for 3 times. He became a cabinet minister for 8 years. Look at that public record. He trained, his law firm trained most of the young, brilliant lawyers that you have today. Some of them have been attorney generals. That is the track record.
That is the track record. A man who has the conviction to deliver what he believes in on behalf of everybody else. He has demonstrated over the years that he's prepared to sacrifice his personal comfort and ensure that the majority of the people have a minimum level of comfort that he could have had for himself, left alone without that spirit of personal sacrifice. Free education is possible because that is the only transformational force that can change this country for the better in probably just a generation. Now, Adventures in the Diaspora, in collaboration with Joy News Television, Multi TV, brings you a symposium on the theme Role of Design in Culture, reviving the National Museum of Art at the Golden Tulip Hotel at 7:30 p.m. prompt on Thursday, that's tomorrow, 8th March 2012. Come meet David Ajay, a celebrated Ghanaian architect, and Amachi Ndili, the CEO of Golden Tulip, as they discuss the role of design in culture, reviving the National Museum of Art. Now, we've been discussing the development demands that is required of leadership. And we have on the table Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, who has this big vision, has brought forth a major transformational view of education, saying that we need to shift basic education from a termination point of JHS to SHS in order to make our youth more employable, more self-sustaining, and more useful to this nation, even as they come out of school. You can join us on the phone line 0302 211 701 702. 0302-211-701-702. Nana, infrastructure for basic schools. Huge cost at stake, not just pay the non-fee paying bit, but also the paraphernalia that goes with it, extra teachers, extra classrooms, all of that. How do we cope with that?
Better management of our resources. Same thing, leadership. Ensuring that corruption is cut to the barest minimum and that we are efficient. I'll give you an example of how this government has performed when it comes to pricing of infrastructure in this country. In November 2009, a 6-classroom block was built for 72,000 Ghana cedis.
November 2009.
2009. Today, January 2012, just 2 years.
Sami's already on the line from Obuasi. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir, Sami. Go ahead.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, I'm calling from Obuasi.
Go ahead.
You see, I'm wondering why the people of Ghana have to change people like you for the NDC. You see, I still cannot understand it. Looking at the performance of the MPP in government. You see, but let me go straight to this point. I have a problem with you. Because you allow the NDC to say certain things which are not true, and they get away with it. For instance, I live in a village in the year 2000, and I used to listen to radio a lot, especially the parliamentary report. During this debate on the GET fund, I followed through and through. So later, when the bill was passed in September, the NDC had to administer it for just 3 months. They didn't set anything in place. The first 3 months morning, they blew it. MPP came and set all the this thing, put all the machinery in place for the GET fund to take off. And you allow them to always accuse you of opposing the bill. I don't understand this. You always allow the NDC to accuse the MPP of opposing the service of the GET fund. So I came to Accra from the village, went to Parliament, went to the marketing department, and demanded all the 12 copies of the debate. I bought them, and to my utter surprise and what I was expecting, the debate itself was started by Nana Akufo-Addo. And all the 12 members of Parliament, MPP members who spoke in favor of the bill, supported it. Malik Alassane, Baladu, I am giving you an assignment. Go and take all the 12. And you agree that it was MPP who established it 90%.
Thank you.
So the debate itself, it was only the 3 CPP members who were emphatic that they were not supporting it. But even they gave a reason that because the NDC brought the bill out of a commotion, their problem with the news. It was not something that they planned for it. So they should go back and come with a better bill. That's why the CPP, 3 people were. So in fact,
Thank you. Nana, I think you've made your point and we'll take up that assignment. Let's take Nana from Kede.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Yawabiasama.
Yes, sir. Please lower the volume on your TV set just a bit.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
All right. I also say kudos to Nana Kumia, and we would like him to come to Kede constituency. Mr. Yawabi, look, the NDC is trying a propaganda machinery in Kede here, which will not work. And especially in Ghana. Yesterday, I was on set watching Majority Caucus. Peter Otuko Nobuama was just showing a booklet which MPP never did. They are using it as a means of throwing dust into their people's eyes. We want you people to sit up. Come down to the grassroots, and then speak with people. Let them know what Nana has for the people of Ghana. Nana is not coming to take the people's money as they are doing, as the NDC is doing, and taking Ghanaians' money and then sharing among themselves. I'm a polytechnic student and I'm still in the house because my lecturers are on strike. What are they still doing about this thing? So we are waiting for the NPP to come. Nana Komia and Nana Akufo-Addo should come and save Ghana. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We're very grateful for intervention. Nana, you were describing the
yes, I was saying to you that you were talking about provision of infrastructure, that in November 2009, a 6 classroom block cost 72,000.
We have another call. Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Good evening.
Good evening.
How it works? This Aziz from what?
It's going well, sir.
Yeah. Okay. That's Aziz from La.
Yes, sir.
I want to thank you very much, Mr. Young, and then communication director Nana Komia. In fact, I like Nana Komia so much. And then I'm having some three personalities in the NPP that I love them so much. That Nana Komia is one, Damboachi is two, and then J3 I like them so much. They should keep a bar. Let's get a little bit realistic. Mr. Yao, NPP is a political party. Currently, as we are speaking, let's pick the issue. Well, Nanado, they have been all these achievements. But as a human being, he's not perfect as he was saying. So we should give us the other side of Nana Akufo-Addo too. What we are saying currently, if you look at Nana Akufo-Addo and President Moss, President Moss is far ahead. Because President Moss have demonstrated everything we have seen. In fact, rural electrification, that's what we were in need of. We had it currently. And then secondary school, we're looking for it. Secondary school, we had it in the upper west here. So these are some of the things that we are looking for. And then we had it. So we are saying that President Moss should be given the second term to continue with these good things. You see, Nana Akufo-Addo he should definitely retire from Ghana politics come December. I can see that you like my submission. You are laughing. I like that.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I've run out of time. Nana, can you wrap this up for us in 1 minute flat?
Yes. So the 6 classroom block, the cost over the last 2 years had moved from 72,000 Ghana cedis for the 6 classroom to 325,000 in old CD terms. That is 720 million to 3,250,000,000.
What?
In 2 years. Inflation is low, they say is 8.5. The currency is stable, all of that. 6 classroom block has moved from 72,000 to 325,000 in 2 years. That's what we have on our hands.
You've heard it for yourself. That alone tells you the picture of the crisis we have on our hands in terms of husbanding the resources of this country and making the right choices how to spend the money. In 2 years, we are building a 6 classroom block for 72,000. In 2 years ago, 2009, 72,000. And now, the same thing, they said they added funds or something, it's gone up to 300,000.
And 25.
And 25,000. There's an extra 25 on the 300. That is almost what? 500%? Just short of 500%.
400%.
400%.
In 2 years.
The choices are yours to make. If you want to transform this country for the better, I think the choice is clear. It is the NPP and no other, led by Nana Addo with a vision that can transform this country.